people that you think would be helpful for the committee?
Right.
Yeah.
Well, actually, one person is Matt Crowley. He has a great scientific brain that could bring in, from a data perspective, and help, uncover inaccuracies with what we're getting from the FAA, and what we're seeing, just, what we're being presented and what is actually reality are two different things. And to your point, Karis, is that we need to fight data with data. So we need to poke holes as much as we can to saying, you're saying this, but we're actually seeing this, because wherever our meetings go, we want to make sure that we're just ironclad. So just having more minds on this would be beneficial. Even like a Phil Joharing too. I mean, he has a vast amount of knowledge, and so I think that not having him here, he's speaking here each week, and he's working behind the scenes. And if the town's going to move forward, as we say we are, I think that having him.
I'm with you.
I think the other thing is, if we're a committee that represents the town, I feel like we need to be representative of the town. So I think we have to be aware of where people are physically located as well. Because if you're, if this is all of your neighbors that are on the committee, I'm not saying it is. I'm just throwing this as an out there. You want to make sure that we represent the whole town. We have a lot of neighborhood associations and things like that. So I think it's important that we have members that can work on these issues, but also that they represent all of the, precincts, for instance, in the town, because we're looking at this from a town-wide perspective. So I think that's important as well. So.
But if you have if you have a precinct or area town that's not representative, but you have someone who's very qualified and passionate, that's kind of just.
Well, I think you have to weigh all these things all together, but I think that you also have to look at, we want a good representation from the town, so that's an important thing, because we want to be inclusive, and, you certainly want the most qualified people, and I think that if we do that, then, nobody could say that it's one, we're just looking at one area or another, but we're including everybody that wants to help. So I think that's an important thing.
It'd be nice to know who calls in the complaints, and I don't think we don't get those numbers.
I don't think so.
But, I mean, if there was someone who was calling repeatedly, and if you could figure out, Google them and find out if they have any real attributes.
Yeah.
It's posted, Massport posts them.
Okay, that would be a place to
They
look.
post the number of calls, they don't post the names or phone numbers of who
No,
called.
they don't
That's
post that,
confidential.
right,
It's
yeah.
confidential,
Um,
On the issue of the appointments,
Yes,
so that's something that the Board of Selectmen and the Board of Health, because we're the two boards that appointed the committee.
right.
But that is something we've talked about looking at the composition of the committee. We talked about that at our last meeting. And I agree with you, Jen, about Matt. I had a conversation with him yesterday, and I know Matt's got a good background, and I think especially in noise study issues and those types of things would be great for the committee. That's something I think we're going to take up probably over the next, maybe at one of our next very soon meetings. And we probably should see whether there are people who may be currently serving on the committee who possibly can't make the time commitment or can't get to some of the meetings, and are they still interested in serving? Are they still able to come before we look at, because we have 10 people on the committee right now. We did have 11 at one time, but it can be any size that we think makes sense.
Right. I'm just not a huge fan of very large committees, because they tend to get bogged down. The more people you add.
Right.
Yeah, I agree, although this is one where we've got a lot of work that can be
Yeah.
done, and if we can add some people who really are willing to roll up their sleeves and do some of the work, then I think, at least for the short term, that would be a good thing.
Right. Also, there was talk before of I think you mentioned not doing subcommittees because just, maybe the structure, I don't
Being
know.
the minutes and all of that.
But the thing is that if this committee is only meeting once a month, and we're basically handcuffed and not talking email, which is, hard, then it probably would behoove us to have subcommittees that are working on different things, because there's too many things happening, and you have people that are literally meeting around town and fundraising and lobbying Lynch. It's a mess that it just, from a PR perspective. So I think that if we can be more proactive, and even having like a co-chair too, that could help alleviate, the burden of what needs to be done. I know Andy had sent me a note this morning. He's flying from Singapore, that he's willing to take the co-chair if that is deemed appropriate, to help divide and conquer the many different actions that we need to kind of,
I think,
I
I
think
think the
some-
board is, we are looking in a positive manner to try to, accomplish all of what you're saying, so that we can add more arsenal on here, and people who are talented, who, as you've mentioned. And I think at the same point in time, we want to, ensure that, we are working for all of Milton. And I think that, if you're gonna get on this committee, I think that when you look around the room, people here are committed to the whole town. So I think that should be the case, and I think it will be the case. People here are passionate for the whole town. So I think, I think that we're going in the right direction. I think, I agree with you. I think, the composition, I know the Board of Selectmen are talking about that, and about, making some positive changes, which, when we've heard people speak, and, I think that it's incumbent upon us to listen to the residents and hear what the thoughts are from the residents, and have the residents get behind us and work towards what we want to get to.
In terms of subcommittees, I think with these goals and objectives that have been listed out here, and whatever else gets added to it, they're kind of task-oriented and kind of lend themselves to subcommittees. So I think subcommittees could be useful. Keeping in mind those subcommittees report back to
absolutely.
the committee as a whole.
Karis,
but
though,
it
they
can't
could
be a
use it, but they could use a Google Doc. They could send their information in so that other people could see, correct?
Right, they just can't can't be this,
But they
you can't
can't
have a
go back and
substantive
forth.
discussion back
Right,
and
no
forth about
substantive
it.
discussion, but
Right.
if Jen and Bob were working on a subcommittee and they completed some task, they could send it into a shared file where
Right.
people could look at it.
And that smaller group can.
Right, and
could
then when you meet
more
as
often
a
and-
meeting, everybody's already privy to to what the work has been.
Correct.
Completed, okay.
Subcommittees, as a subcommittee of a public body, also subject to the open meeting law. So you have to have a quorum, you have to have posted agendas, and you have to have minutes as well.
Here's
So,
a question. Can you, like, building off what Dave just said, like on a Google Docs, is there a way that you can have, I think there's a way where you can do like a Google Messenger where basically what if me and Barbara are talking about X action, it's public knowledge. So at any time, no.
No,
Okay.
no,
No, it's gonna be a public
Okay.
meeting.
has to be in a public meeting.
Got it. Okay. Good to know.
It's not easy.
I know, that's what I'm saying, I'm
That's
trying
what
to, I
we
mean,
say.
having 30 days or 45 days between meetings is, with something with so many deadlines and,
Well, it sounds like right now there are a couple of deadlines anyway that we're talking about, so.
I'm just saying meeting here, like, if we're, I don't know when we're gonna meet, so it's premature.
But you're right in that respect, that the subcommittee is leaner and meaner and can,
Right.
and can, get together more often. It still has to be a public meeting, but certainly can.
So you'd have to meet here,
Yeah.
posted agenda, you have to have a quorum. So if, there are 4 of you, you'd need 3.
Yep, fine, let's do
Like
it.
that.
I think in the meantime, coming up with roles and responsibilities for each member, what is your strength?
Right,
What could you lend? I think that could be very helpful.
right. That's why I feel like we're flailing here. I don't know who's doing what, and there's no communication between meetings, and it just seems like it's,
Well, I mean, it's difficult because we do have the open meeting law,
Right.
so sometimes I'm getting, emails, and I can't really respond all, because it gets into a discussion, and so that makes it difficult, in all honesty, to do that. So it's difficult in a way, because when you're on a town committee, you have certain rules and regulations. It makes it a lot tougher than if you're on a committee that's not associated with the town, because if you wanted to meet every day, you could.
right.
But we have posting requirements, we have agenda requirements. It makes it a little tougher, and as Karis had pointed out, even with talking in between meetings, it's challenging,
Right.
as you say. I mean, I have to say, on the Board of Health, I'm one of 3 members, and I remember a couple of summers ago, one of the other members has a son that played baseball with my son. We said, we can't even sit next to each other because people will think we're talking about, Board of Health issues
well,
when
you
we're just
can,
sitting, well,
I know.
perception
Yeah.
too. We're like, it's sort of funny, but that's the way it is. It's just,
Amazing
it makes it
anything gets
tough.
done.
Yeah, it makes it tough, so, but let's look going forward in terms of when we'd like to have the next meeting, and it sounds like we're gonna have some more input into these letters and so forth, so, that need to be filed by November 6th, right? And, so we probably should meet in another, 2 or 3 weeks. Says
Thursday
we'll-
night?
I'm sorry?
Thursday night?
Well, does Thursday
The
nights
best.
work for people?
Yes.
Thursday night's a better night for me now.
What's the consensus of the committee? Does that seem to work, and what is the date? I unfortunately did not bring my calendar.
Be the
I ran
29th,
out
I
of the house
believe,
without
wouldn't it?
You're
Be
right.
the 29th, Thursday the 29th.
In 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Does that work for people?
Doesn't.
Anyway. Okay.
You can't do it?
I can't do it that day.
Is there any other day that week?
I can't do it that day.
Oh,
was
Caroline can't
Tuesday?
either, so.
I'm sorry, what date was discussed?
The 29th, it's a Thursday, but we have two people that can't make that meeting.
28th, no.
29th is totally out.
Okay, so.
Big special event.
November,
Thursday would be November 5th.
It's town meeting.
And this, we need to be in by the 6th, so that wouldn't be so great. But although we would circulate it ahead of time, right? We could circulate that letter ahead of time, or?
Is there a
You
possibility?
can
Circulate
circulate
it,
it
you
ahead of
can't
time, you
discuss
can't
it.
discuss it or vote on it.
Oh,
That wouldn't
approve
help.
it.
Yep, so that wouldn't be helpful.
How about
I
that
mean, you could,
Tuesday,
you could delegate,
November what?
3rd.
Katie and Cindy are working on it, and you're delegating one other person to work on it. So there's no quorum issue if you delegate that to them, and you don't get your hands on it again, if you want to get it done.
That's a different letter, that's the Plans 3, this is the environmental review.
Right.
Oh,
That
okay.
you'll be working on, Karis, too, and
Yeah.
probably doing a draft for us.
Yeah.
November 3rd?
but when we did the 4L, it was circulated to all of us, and we were asked to give
And then I
comments.
You
forwarded.
gave comments to Anne Marie, and
Forwarded
they were
them, and
forwarded to me.
Forwarded, yes.
Oh,
But they weren't
okay.
discussed at a meeting.
They weren't discussed, no.
No.
So I mean, it's really just important for us to all have an opportunity to have an eye on it again.
Right.
and give
Right.
Comments, so.
Right. What seems to work for people?
What about that Tuesday, the first Tuesday of November?
It's election.
Is that, I was gonna say, it is an election day.
No one.
It's okay.
Not in Milton, no.
No? Okay.
Not this
You
year, no.
you won't have any questions.
Does that seem to work for people? Will that give us enough time to
A special event I'm supposed to. go
send that
to.
in?
Yeah.
With comments and so forth?
So
The
that's
3rd doesn't
November-
work, November 3rd? No.
Is
What's
that
it?
Monday?
Yeah, it does.
That's a-
Tuesday.
That's a Tuesday.
That's fine with
Tuesday,
me.
Tuesday, November 3rd?
Does that seem to
Oh,
work?
no, that's the day I have a special event at work, but it's not absolutely obligatory.
We have to have a, you know, if the majority of the people can make it, we've got to get. it
Monday the
together.
2nd, everybody, no?
No, because Barbara can't do
Oh,
it.
okay,
Yeah.
Mark can't.
Be your first,
Um,
that'll be your first
And
Tuesday
the
in
3rd, if
November.
the Board of
Yeah.
Selectmen are meeting.
Right.
I don't know if that
What-
will.
Are the Board of Selectmen meeting that night?
or
What
it's
about
proposed
3rd?
day.
Will be-
Okay, you're meeting that night,
Oh,
so
November
that's
3rd.
out.
Wednesday the 4th?
What about October 28th?
It doesn't have to be out for the
Yeah.
committee, the committee can still meet.
Right. the
Okay.
committee
Okay,
can
you
still
Committee
meet.
can still meet.
that's
You
not-
don't-
yeah,
Committee can
exactly.
still meet.
So do you want to do the 3rd?
That works for
I
me.
could do.
Does
the
that
3rd.
seem to work for people?
You can just run up and down
7 o'clock?
Yeah, we'll do 7.
between the two.
Does that work for you, Caroline? Yep.
The 4th is not, does anybody have any objection to the 4th?
To what?
The 4th, Wednesday the 4th?
Wednesdays are tough for me to get here on time.
Oh, okay, all right.
If we could do the Tuesday, it's better for me.
Yeah.
If it works for people.
Yeah.
I mean, I'll certainly maneuver whatever I can, but
We were
Wednesdays are
just
tough
asked to go to a
for
special-
me. So, are we all
special
set then? So the next day?
November 3rd,
Yep,
7
Tuesday.
PM.
Yep. Okay.
So during that meeting, would we talk about like subcommittees? We'll wait till then, and then divide and conquer then? Is that how we're gonna do it?
Well, we need to get some comments back from both the Board of Selectmen
Okay.
and the Board of Health
Okay.
on this, because it's a joint committee, so
Got it.
we need to, you know, that might be something that comes out of it based on what the goals and objectives are.
Mhm.
So let's see what they come out with first for both, and then that might make more sense.
Okay.
I think it's a little premature, we have to talk about it as a committee and see what the goals and objectives are that we all agree upon, so.
Yeah.
Anything else?
I wanted to say, I think it is, just to reiterate what Jen said, I think there are some really good brains in Milton, you know, and that, you know, we should tap them, as many of them as we can.
Completely agree.
Yes.
You know.
Can those objectives be passed through like Karis and her connection, any connection for the aviation expert? That way we're scrubbing it, making sure that we're, because it's a long list and,
Right.
you know what I mean? I wanna make sure that's, you know, these are like really succinct so that we can really, I don't want, it's be hard to be working on something, because I feel like even in the grassroots or anyone, it's just like you kind of spin your wheels and you're like, oh, it's like a shiny, shiny lure and you're over here. So it's like, it'd be good to have someone from outside saying, you know, I don't mess with the pollution, or I'm not making this up, please don't quote me, but the noise data is probably your best bet for your town right now. So let's figure out how we're gonna build a strategy and plan around that versus giving, 12. That's what I'm, concerned about. we don't have a lot of time.
Well, we'll have 12 on the list, but some of them are more important than others. You know, one of them is
That's what I'm saying,
May
let's
town meeting,
prioritize.
so
and-
that one's
Right.
not the most critical one that we want the committee to start with, but the plans goals is, and we're already started working on that, so. So, yeah, the committee can prioritize
Right.
what's immediate and
And
what's
some
under
might
a
be
deadline.
And some might be ongoing, like
Yes.
making contacts with certain, legislators and who to talk to. Like, that's more of an ongoing thing, I would
Right.
say.
But my
than
point is
some-
that
right.
when we're having those meetings, we want to be buttoned up as possible. So if someone's saying like, look at Milton, these are your three things. And I don't, it could be some worm in Blue Hills that I have, press,
Right, right.
piping plovers have it in Duxbury, so it's not like off the, could be crazy. But the point is that maybe it's historical homes, maybe it's whatever it is, it's gonna be the loophole. I mean, Congress has made it really tough, and that's why Brookline won so many years ago. I don't know if they would necessarily win now. So Milton has more of a challenge, so I just wanna make sure that we're working really strong and making sure that we have supervision here, because, we don't have all the answers.
And we can't talk to each other either.
And we can't talk to each other.
Thanks.
Great. I think- Motion to adjourn. All in favor? Okay.
Second.
That was the worst news I heard. I can't believe what you said.